Oh, welcome back to Let's Play Jane's Fighters Anthology as we continue with the Baltic quick mission. So, one aircraft I'm kind of surprised didn't show up, but, potentially could have, given the age of the other aircraft in the campaign, is the SEPECAT Jaguar, which is an Anglo-French attack aircraft. So, we will be showcasing that off today. So, let's, Baltics. Will be the French and take our Jaguars out with a flight of Raphaels protecting us. So for an enemy, we'll have make it let's give them the Forest Su-35s, which they have a different loadout than the standard Su-35s that don't include the asshole missile, that anti-AWACS missile. So we'll do that. "20 miles out, custom weapons load, and our ground target will be..." I like the idea of an armored column, so let's see what we can have for munitions. Alright, so we have 2 magic missiles for self-defense. Let's see what we can get for bombs, which I believe we would mostly have unguided bombs. Okay, so we can take... What's the most we can get there? Just a 3-pack, huh? Oh, we can get 2 cluster bombs and 2 3-packs, so... Alright, that seems fair, so I think we'll dive in with that. Alright, so fortunately we do have an integrated jammer. And, actually, it's kind of an interesting looking aircraft. Let's see, where's, oh, there's the Raphaels. Right, they're green, so hopefully they'll take care of the SU-35s. And in the meantime, we have, no working IR, that's expected. Alright, looks like they're launching at each other.
Missile launch! Missile launch! Missile launch!
Alright, break and engage.
Missile launch!
Even though, we'd probably fare pretty badly.
Missile launch! Missile launch!
Because we are definitely not designed for that mission. And yeah, this aircraft is maneuvering pretty sluggishly.
Missile launch! Missile launch!
Oh, come on, that could have been like my 1 kill. Hey, I got the pilot who tried to eject, so... Okay, so... we're probably all clear now. Oh, there is still Bayonet. I'm gonna ignore him though, there's at least 1 Raphael left, so... Oh, here we go. We have enemy armor on our scope. So let's line up with the road here. Oh man, this thing is sluggish. Oh, so very sluggish. Which is fair, I mean, again, this is an attack aircraft, not a fighter, so... Alright. Now we we are lined up with the column, more or less. Looks like we're about 5 miles out. And I presume my wingmen are setting up their own attack runs, so hopefully we don't collide with each other. Alright, well, we can loose our cluster bombs there. Which seem to have been completely ineffective against that T-72, but we, okay, our wingmen are making their own passes now. Looks like, oh wow, they're just going to town. I think they're using the 500-pound bombs, though. There's a BTR-80, and these should definitely take these T-72s out. At least one of them. There we go. And it seems there is still someone left. So now we have no ordnance other than the fuel, and we're still pretty hefty, so... Oh shoot, there's a whole nother armored column here. Oh, thank God they're messing with those cannons, but apparently we don't have any engine sound today. Alright, they're coming in on their attack run, so let's see how they do. We actually did a fair amount of damage to them. I don't think we could take them all out with our cannon, but we could definitely do some damage. So I imagine they're going to be using their cluster munitions at this point. Or default loadout. I don't know if their loadout always matches mine, but... Alright, they got some T-90s down, they got the BMP-2 down. They're just kind of going to town. Alright, come on. There we go. Oh, we can say we helped now. And here comes another wingman coming in. So hopefully his bombs can finish off the other T-80 there. Uh-oh. Maybe we took out his target instead. Alright, well, let's see who's left. Looks like just the one T-80. We should be able to knock him out with what's left of our cannon. Come on. There we go, we got him. And that was left-handed, as the GDI Commando famously says. Actually, it was in this case, because I was using my right hand to pet Ash the kitty cat here, so we'll tell everyone to bug out, and we will head south, course 090, and head home. I don't even think... Oh, okay, there's our fuel tanks dropping. So yeah, we just dropped those things. But apparently this aircraft is a bit fuel hungry. But the SEPECAT Jaguar is an Anglo-French jet attack aircraft, originally used by the British and French Air Forces, and eventually was exported to India as well. It was used in the close air support and nuclear strike role, and it actually still remains in service with the Indians. It was originally conceived in the 60s as a jet trainer with a secondary ground attack capability, but the requirements changed as they do. Oh shoot, I'm on the wrong course. I need to go to 180. There we go. That's more like it. But yeah, they changed the requirements. They wanted it to go supersonic. They wanted it to be able to do recon, tactical nuclear strikes. The French wanted a carrier variant. But they ended up canceling that for the Superintendard. And the aircraft were manufactured by SEPECAT, which is a French word, Société Européenne de Production d'Avions École de Combat et d'Appui Tactique, a joint venture between Breguet and the British Aircraft Corporation, and one of the first major joint Anglo-French military aircraft programs. One of the only ones that the French didn't pull out of. It actually turned out it was exported beyond India to Oman, Ecuador, and Nigeria as well. And it was, had some pretty numerous uses, but we'll get into that later. So the Jaguar program began in the early 1960s because the British had a requirement, Air Staff Target 362, for an advanced supersonic jet trainer to replace their Foland Nat T-1 and Hawker T-7 aircraft. The French had their own requirement, the École de Combat et d'Appui Tactique, tactical combat support trainer, for a cheap subsonic dual-role trainer and light attack aircraft to replace their Folga Magister, Lockheed T-33s, and Dassault Mystère 4s. Both countries had several companies propose designs. BAC Hunting, Hawker, Siddeley, and Foland in Britain, and Breguet, Hotez, Sud Aviation, Nord, and Dassault in France. And the two countries signed an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, in May of 1965 to develop two aircraft, a trainer based on the ECAT and the larger Anglo-French variable geometry fighter, which obviously that went nowhere, although I think some of that tech ended up being used in the Harrier. The cross-channel negotiations led to the formation of SEPECAT, the European company for the production of a combat trainer and tactical support aircraft. In 1966, as a joint venture between Breguet and British Aircraft Corporation, produced the airframe. It was based in part on the Breguet BR-121 with French landing gear, but they built the Jaguar incorporating major design elements from BAC in the wing and high lift devices. Production of components were to be split between Breguet and BAC, and the aircrafts themselves would be assembled in production lines in the UK and in France. Each aircraft component only had one source to avoid duplication. The British light strike and tactical support versions were the most demanding design, requiring supersonic performance, superior avionics, cutting-edge nav attack system of more accuracy and complexity than the French version, a moving map display, laser rangefinder, and marked target seeker. As a result, the initial BR-121 design needed a thinner wing, redesigned fuselage, a higher rear cockpit, and afterburning engines. While putting on smiling faces for the public, maintaining the illusion of a shared design, the British design departed from the French subsonic Breguet 121 to such a degree that it was effectively a new design. A separate partnership was formed between Rolls-Royce and Turbomeca to develop the Adour afterburning turbofan engine. The R121 was proposed with Turbomeca's Tourmalet engine for ECAT, but Breguet preferred the Rolls-Royce RB172, and their joint venture would use elements of both. See where we are. They're off close, Captain. Alright, let's bring it back in, and, there's Tartu, so. Switch navigation mode and head for there. Turn our jammers off. The new engine, which would be used for the AFVG as well, would be built in Derby and Tarnals. Previous collaborative efforts between Britain and France had been complicated. The AFVG program ended in cancellation, and controversy surrounded the development of the supersonic airliner Concorde. Whilst the technical collaboration between BAC and Breguet went well, when Dassault took over Breguet in 1971, it encouraged acceptance of its own designs, such as the Super-Intendard naval attack aircraft in the Mirage F1, for which it would receive more profit over the Anglo-French Jaguar. Oh, we're actually already here. Alright. I guess we'll start lining up then. I think we're coming in from the wrong way, but... The initial plan was for Britain to buy 150 Jaguar B trainers, with its strike requirements being met by the advanced BAC Dassault AFVG aircraft, with France to buy 75 E trainers and 75A single-seat strike attack aircraft. Dassault favored its own Mirage G aircraft above the collaborative AFVG, and in June 1967, France cancelled the AFVG on cost grounds. This left a gap in the RAF's planned strike capabilities for the 1970s. At the same time as France's cancellation of the AFVG, Germany was expressing serious interest in the Jaguar, and thus the design became more oriented towards the low-level strike role.
We're almost home.
The RAF had initially planned to buy 150 trainers, however, with both the BAC PSR-2 tactical strike aircraft and Hawker Siddeley P-1154 supersonic V-STOL fighter canceled. Alright, we're coming in a little too hot here still. The RAF were looking increasingly hard at their future light strike needs and realizing that they now need more than just advanced trainers with some secondary counterinsurgency capability. The RAF strike lineup was at this point intended to consist of American General Dynamics F-111s plus the AFVG for lighter strike purposes. There was concern that both F-111 and AFVG were high-risk projects, and with the French already planning on a strike role for the Jaguar, there was an opportunity to introduce a serious backup plan for the RAF's future strike Jaguar. As a result, by October 1970, the RAF's requirement had changed to 165 single-seat strike aircraft and 35 trainers. Alright, let's put this baby down. Alright, let's decrease our sync rate a little bit. There we go.
Welcome back.
Alright, so. The Jaguar was to replace the McDonnell Douglas FGR-2 Phantom in the close air support tactical recon and tactical strike roles, freeing the Phantom to be used for air defense. And both the French and British training requirements had developed significantly and were eventually fulfilled by the Alpha Jet and Hawker Siddeley Hawk instead. The French, meanwhile, had chosen the Jaguar to replace the Aeronaval's Dassault Intendard 4 and increase their order to include an initial 40 of a carrier-capable maritime version of the Jaguar M for the Aeronaval. From these apparently disparate aims would come a single and entirely different aircraft. Relatively high-tech, supersonic, and optimized for ground attack in a high-threat environment. So the first of 8... Come on. Thing just doesn't want to move. Okay. So the first of 8 prototypes flew on September 8, 1968, a 2-seat design fitted with the first production model Endure engine. The aircraft later went supersonic on its 3rd test flight, but was lost on landing on March 26, 1970, following an engine fire. The second prototype flew in February of 1969. Total 3 prototypes appeared in flight at the Paris Air Show that year. First French A prototype flew in March 1969, and then in October, a British S aircraft conducted its first flight. Oh, we don't have any noises from our control surfaces, so I'm like, do I have brakes? And we unfortunately can't see our wingmen. They may have, oh, nope, there they come. I was gonna say they may have, ran out of fuel, but it seems we got at least one coming in. So that's good. There we go. Now we can watch him. An M prototype flew in November 1969. The M had a strengthened airframe, an arrestor hook, and a different undercarriage, with nose wheel and single main wheels. After testing in France, it went to RAE at Thurley for carrier landing trials from their land-based catapult, after which in July of 1970, it underwent a series of shipboard trials from the French carrier Clemenceau. From these trials, there were doubts about the throttle response in case of an aborted landing. Shipboard testing also revealed problems with the aircraft's handling when flying on one engine, although planned engine improvements were to have rectified these problems. The M was considered a suitable replacement for the Intended 4, but the Aeronaval would only be able to purchase 60 instead of 100 aircraft. Furthermore, the Jaguar M was expensive, limiting the size of the force the French Navy could afford. In 1971, Dassault proposed a Superintendent, claiming that it was a simpler and cheaper development of the existing Intended 4, and in 1973, the French Navy agreed to order it instead of the Jaguar. The low rising cost of the Superintendent meant that only 71 of the planned 100 aircraft were purchased. Wow, they may as well have went with the Jaguar then. The M was cancelled by the French government in 1973. So, the Jaguar is an orthodox single-seat, swept-wing, twin-engine monoplane design with tall tricycle-type retractable landing gear. In its original configuration, it has a maximum takeoff weight in the 15-ton class and could manage combat radius and internal fuel alone of 530 miles. Giving the Jaguar greater operational range than competitors such as the MiG-27. The aircraft had hardpoints fitted for an external weapons load of up to 10,000 pounds. Typical weapons fitted included the Matra LRF-2 rocket pod, BAP 100mm bombs, Matra AS-37 anti-radar missiles, M9 Sidewinder missiles, and Rockeye cluster bombs. The RAF's Jaguars gained several new weapons during the Cold War, including CRV-7 high-velocity rockets and American CBU-87 cluster bombs. Finally, the Jaguar was equipped with either a pair of French Stefa cannons or alternatively British Aden cannons, and I guess we have the British variant since we have the Aden cannon. The Jaguar International had the unusual option provision for fitting over-wing pylons used for short-range air missiles such as the Matra R550 Magic or the A9 Sidewinder. This option freed up the underwing pylons for other weapons and stores. RAF Jaguars gained overwing pylons in the build-up to Operation Grand Speed in 1990, but French Jaguars were not modified. The RAF's Jaguar 97s were intended to be wired for the carriage of ASRAMs on the overwing launchers, but clearance of this weapon was never completed because of funding cuts. Engine. The SEPECAT Jaguar is powered by the Rolls-Royce Turbomeca Adour turbofan engine, which was developed in parallel with and primarily for the Jaguar. A separate partnership was formed between Rolls-Royce and Turbomeca to develop the Adour, a two-shaft turbofan engine with afterburner. Twin engines were selected for survivability, ease of maintenance was a major consideration, an engine change being possible within 30 minutes. Wow, it takes longer than that to change your car engine, I can tell you that. For the Jaguars, it needed a low bypass capable of high thrust for takeoff, supersonic flight, and low-level dashes. When the first prototype Jaguar flew on September of 1968, it was also the first flight for the engine. In its initial development, the Adour engine had complications with the stability of the afterburner system, and shipboard testing showed slow throttle response times, problematic in the situation of an aborted landing. Engine improvements rectified these problems prior to the Jaguar coming into service. French service, the Jaguars were introduced using the original Mark 101 engine. RAF Jaguars entered service using the Mark 102 engine, mainly featuring better afterburner throttle control over the Mark 101. The RAF later had its Jaguars re-engined around 1981 with the improved Jaguar Mark 104 and again in 1999 with the Mark 106, each providing greater performance. The Jaguar was developed into both afterburning and non-afterburning models. The Bay Hawk, which had beaten the Jaguar to fill the Air Staff Target 362 trainer requirement, also adopted the non-afterburning Jaguar engine developed for the Jaguar. The Jaguar engine found use in several aircraft abroad, such as the McDonnell Douglas T-45 Goshawk, which I believe is just a variant of the Bay Hawk, the Mitsubishi T2, and the Mitsubishi F1. Even following the Jaguar's retirement in Europe, the Jaguar continues to be an active product with new variants being developed. As of February of 2013, the Indian Air Force was considering fitting 125 Jaguars with new Honeywell F-125IN engines. Avionics. From the outset, the Jaguar was equipped with a navigation and attack system. While A versions had a reliable double gyroscopic system and a Doppler radar derived from the Mirage 3E, the GR1s had a totally new digital system with an inertial navigation system and a heads-up display, plus a laser ranging and mark targeting system in the nose. These systems were a step above the current technology of the time, but reliability was quite low. There were many more systems added with the time, like the Atlas II in the French aircraft, and in 1994-1995, some GR1s had laser designator systems fitted. Missiles like AS-30 and even the anti-ship Sea-Eagle were added. Some IAF aircraft had the Agave radar system purposely for the maritime strike. India later developed the Darren system in its Jaguar fleet with a modern 1553 data bus. Although in operational theaters such as the Gulf War, the Jaguar proved to be mechanically more reliable than the Panavia Tornado, the aircraft's avionics were a hindrance to conducting missions. Owing to the Jaguar A's shortcomings in navigation and target acquisition, French Jaguars had to be escorted by the Dassault Mirage F-1CR reconnaissance aircraft to act as guides. The Jaguar provided a valuable component in the campaign, and the RAF detachment of 12 Jaguars flew a total of 612 combat sorties with no aircraft lost. Significant changes were made both during and shortly after the war. Owing to obsolete navigational systems being unable to provide the accuracy required, both French and British Jaguars were quickly modified with GPS receivers, which was a recent technology at the time. Prior to the 1995 NATO bombing campaign in Bosnia-Herzegovina, known as Operation Deliberate Force, a dozen Jaguars were upgraded with the capability to carry the TL laser designator pod and redesignated the Jaguar GR-1B or T-2B, respectively. Shortly afterwards, the RAF upgraded its Jaguar fleet to a common standard incorporating field and the ability to use new reconnaissance pods. The interim GR-3, Jaguar 96, upgrade added a new HUD, a new hand controller and stick top, integrated GPS and TERPROM terrain reference navigation. Further upgraded Jaguar GR-38 introduced the new EO GP1 JRP digital reconnaissance pod, a helmet-mounted sight, improved cockpit displays, a data link, and improved night vision goggles capability. Is he really all... No, he's there. Okay. I was just facing the wrong way. That's why it was, I don't see, where that other aircraft crashed, because we definitely heard him crash, but... A single Jaguar was converted into the Jaguar Active Control technology with fly-by-wire controls and aerodynamic alterations to the airframe. Aerodynamic instability improved maneuverability, and the test data was used in the development of the Eurofighter. Now, as far as operational history goes, the French Air Force took delivery of their first Jaguar in 1973, which ended up being one of 160 single-seat Jaguar A's that they would receive. For type conversion training, France also took 40 of the two-seat Jaguar E. While the Jaguar was capable of carrying a single AN-52 nuclear bomb, the French government did not assign any Jaguars for use in the Force de Frappe, France's strategic nuclear deterrent. This task was carried out by the Dassault Mirage 4 and later the Mirage 2000N. Nuclear-armed Jaguars were instead assigned to the pre-strategic role to clear a path for the Strategic Strike Force. The AN-52 nuclear bomb was retired from service in September of 1991 when the formerly nuclear-armed squadrons of Escadron de Casse 7 then concentrated on conventional attack. French Jaguars also performed in the role of electronic countermeasures aircraft bearing the Martel anti-radiation missile capable of staying airborne to suppress enemy defenses for long periods of time through mid-air refueling. In French service, the Jaguar was frequently deployed in defense of national interests in Africa during the 1970s, a policy sometimes referred to as Jaguar diplomacy, la diplomate du Jaguar. Jaguars made their combat debut against Polisario Front forces in Mauritania in December of 1977 as part of Operation Lamantin. In August of 1978, eventually armed Rapid Reaction Squadron was established, intended to deploy in support of French forces and interests anywhere in the world. France had been involved in the conflict in Chad for many years, and 2,000 men of the Force de Intervention, along with helicopters and Jaguars, were deployed to defend central Chad in 1978. Further forces arriving later as part of Operation Takad. The Jaguars were engaged in May and June of 1978, contributing significantly in halting an offensive by Lugoni Udeti's Frolinat forces, who were routed. One aircraft was shot down, but the pilot was recovered by helicopter. In support of the further military action in the region known as Operation Manta, Jaguars were deployed to Bangui, Central African Republic in 1983, before being rebased inside Chad at N'Djamena International Airport. On the 25th of January 1984, Jaguars attacked a rebel column that was withdrawing after raiding the town of Ziggy. One aircraft was shot down and the pilot, Captain Michael Crossi, was killed. The Libyans denied involvement. The Manta forces were withdrawn in 1984 as part of a de-escalation agreement whereby both Libyan and French forces were to be withdrawn from Chad. The Libyans did not respect the agreement, however, and Jaguars returned to Chad in 1986 as part of Operation Purveyor, this time with a more forceful role. On the 16th of February 1986, 11 Jaguars, escorted by Mirage F-1 fighters and supported by C-135F tankers and Frigate Atlantique aircraft, launched a raid on the airfield at Wadi Doum, which the Libyans had constructed in northern Chad using BAP-100 anti-runway bombs. In response to Libyan incursions, another strike was carried out on the 7th of January 1987 when a Jaguar destroyed a Libyan radar with a Martel missile. The Jaguars stationed at N'Djamena were a target for Libyan sabotage owing to their effectiveness against enemy forces, but the attempts were unsuccessful. Jaguars from France were dispatched to participate in several coalition campaigns in the 1990s, from the 1991 Gulf War to the 1999 Kosovo conflict. The Persian Gulf War. France also committed military assets to the coalition. In October of 1998, Jaguar A aircraft, along with several Dassault Mirage F-1CR reconnaissance aircraft, were sent to the Middle East with the Mirages, which had more advanced avionics, acting as guides for the Jaguars. Owing to obsolete navigational systems being unable to provide the accuracy required, both French and British Jaguars were quickly modified with GPS receivers. RAF Tornadoes also required adaptation to a lesser extent. The French Jaguar force in Saudi Arabia built up to a maximum of 28 aircraft, which carried out 615 combat sorties, with one Jaguar damaged by an Iraqi surface-to-air missile. Typical targets were Iraqi armored units, Scud missile sites, and naval vessels. On the 15th of January 1991, 12 French Jaguars bombed Ahmad al-Jaber Air Base in Kuwait. 3 were damaged in the attack, but all returned to base. On the 26th of January, RAF Jaguars and Tornadoes raided several Silkworm missile batteries in Kuwait to encourage the perception of an imminent amphibious invasion to liberate the country. On the 30th, 2 RAF Jaguars destroyed a Bolnochi-class landing ship with rockets and cannon. The Iraqi Republican Guard, entrenched on the Kuwait-Saudi border, were subjected to a continuous intensive bombing campaign for weeks to demoralize them, Allied Jaguars forming a portion of the delivering aircraft. Jaguars also performed valuable reconnaissance at the combat area for coalition forces. Both nations' Jaguars were withdrawn from the region in March 1991 at the end of Desert Storm. In Operation Deliberate Force, the NATO bombing campaign over Bosnia in 1995, 6 Jaguars based in Italy conducted 63 strike missions. The last Jaguars in French service was retired in 2005, being replaced in the ground attack roles by Dassault Rafale. Excuse me. Now for the UK service history. The RAF first accepted delivery of their first Jaguar GR1 in 1974, of which there would eventually be 165. These were supplemented by 35 two-seat trainers, the Jaguar T2. Jaguar S and B had a more comprehensive nav attack system than the A and E models used by the French Air Force, consisting of a Ferranti Marconi navigation weapon aiming subsystem and a Plessy 10 way weapon control system. RAF Jaguars were used for rapid deployment and regional reinforcement, and others flew in the tactical nuclear strike role carrying the WE-177 bomb. Beginning in 1975 with No. 6 Squadron, followed by No. 54 Squadron based at RAF Coltishall and a Shadow Squadron, 226 OCU based at RAF Lossiemouth, Jaguar squadrons were declared operational to the Supreme Allied Commander of Europe with the British nuclear weapon WE-177. 14 and 17 squadrons based at RAF Bruggen, followed by 1977. 28 and 31 squadrons, also based at RAF Bruggen, brought the RAF Jaguar force to its peak strength of 6 squadrons plus the OCU, each of 12 aircraft equipped with 8 WE-177 nuclear weapons. Further squadrons, 2 Squadron 41 Squadron based at RAF Larbruch and RAF Coltishall, respectively, were primarily tasked with tactical reconnaissance. From 1975, the OCU's wartime role was an operational squadron in the front line, assigned to Supreme Allied Commander of Europe, with 12 Jaguar aircraft, 8 WE-177 nuclear bombs, and a variety of conventional weapons. In April of 1975, a single Jaguar was used to test the aircraft's rough airstrip capacity by landing and taking off multiple times from the M55 motorway. Final test flight was conducted with a full weapons load. The ability was never used in service, but was considered useful as improvised runways might be the only runways left available in a large-scale European conflict. In a high-intensity European war, the role of the Jaguar was to support land forces on the continent in resisting a Soviet assault on Western Europe, directing targets beyond the forward edge of the battlefield should a conflict escalate. The apparent mismatch between aircraft numbers and nuclear bombs was a consequence of RAF staff planners concluded that there would be one-third attrition of Jaguars in an early conventional phase, leaving the survivors numerically strong enough to deliver the entire allocated stockpile of 56 nuclear bombs. From December of 1983, 75 Jaguar GR1s and 14 T2s were upgraded to the GR1A and T2A standards, with the FIN 1064 navigation and attack systems replacing the original NavWAS system. At about the same time, most were also re-engined with ADOR 104 engines and were fitted with the ability to carry Sidewinder air-to-air missiles or an ALQ 101V10 electronic countermeasure pods under the wings. The RAF Jaguar force was altered in late 1984 when 17 Squadron, 20 Squadron, and 31 Squadron exchanged their Jaguars for Tornado GR1s. Although their assignment to the Supreme Allied Commander of Europe and their wartime role remained unchanged, the 2 other RAF German units, 14 Squadron and 2 Squadron, followed suit in 1985 and 1989 respectively, which left the operational Jaguar force concentrated in 6, 41, and 54 squadrons at RAF Coltishall. Following the Iraq invasion of Kuwait on the 9th of August of 1990, the British government assigned an initial 12 Jaguar GR1A and 12 Tornado F3 aircraft to the Middle East in Operation Granby. These aircraft operated from bases in Oman and Bahrain. On the 23rd of August 1990, a Squadron Tornado GR1 interdictors were dispatched to the region as well, but the Tornado GR1 was difficult to keep operational in the high temperatures. Blackburn Buccaneers were dispatched in January 1991 to act as laser designators for the ground strike aircraft. RAF Jaguars gained several new weapons during the Persian Gulf War, including CRV-7 high-velocity rockets and American CBU-87 cluster bombs, which were used because the RAF's existing BL-755 bombs were designed for low-level release and therefore unsuitable for higher altitude operations common over the Persian Gulf. The RAF's attachment of 12 Jaguars flew 612 combat sorties with no aircraft being lost. XZ-364 Sadman flew 47 missions, the highest number of missions of any aircraft. In 1994, in order to meet an urgent need to increase the number of aircraft able to designate targets for laser-guided bombs, 10 GR-1As and 2 T-2As were upgraded with the capability to carry the TL laser designator pod and redesignated as Jaguar GR-1B and T-2B respectively. TL-equipped Jaguar GR-1Bs were deployed to Italy in August to take part in Operation Deliberate Force against Bosnian Serb forces being used to designate targets for RAF Harriers. During the Bosnian operations, the Jaguar 41 Squadron carried out the first RAF bombing raid in Europe since the end of the Second World War 50 years earlier. Following the success of the GR-1B and T-2B upgrade, the RAF launched a plan to upgrade its Jaguar fleet to a common standard, incorporating improvements introduced to some aircraft during the Gulf War, together with adding the ability to use the TL and other new reconnaissance pods. The upgrade came in two parts. The interim GR-3 Jaguar 96 upgrade added a new HUD, new hand controller and stick top, integrated GPS and TERPROM terrain reference navigation systems, and sorry, I lost my place there. It was delivered in two standards, one for reconnaissance and TL. The further upgraded Jaguar GR-3A, the Jaguar 97, introduced fleet-wide compatibility with TL, and a new EO GP1JRP digital reconnaissance pod, a helmet-mounted sight, improved cockpit displays, a data link, and improved night vision goggles compatibility. All GR-3As were subsequently re-engined with the new Otter 106 turbofan. Jaguars did not see service in the 2003 Iraq War. They had been planned to operate from bases in Turkey to the north of Iraq, but Turkey refused access to its air bases and the northern attack was cancelled. Demands by the UK Treasury to cut the defence budget led to Defence Secretary Geoff Hoon detailing plans on the 21st of July 2004 to withdraw the Jaguar by 2007. An expected out-of-service date of October 2007 was brought forward at just 5 days' notice to on the 30th of April 2007. On the 20th of December 2007, a Jaguar operated by Quinnipiac undertook the last ever British military Jaguar flight. Following their retirement from flight service, many Jaguars continued to serve as ground instructional airframes, most notably at RAF Cosford, used in the training of RAF fitters. Now, India is the other last major operator of the Jaguar, and they had been approached as a possible customer as early as 1968, but originally they declined partly on the grounds that it was not yet clear if the British and French themselves would accept the aircraft in service. At the time, India already had its Maroon fighter bomber and tried to upgrade it with new engines until the new project collapsed. A decade later, the Indian Air Force would become the largest single export customer, with a $1 billion order for aircraft in 1978, the Jaguar being chosen ahead of its competition, being the Dassault Mirage F1 and the Saab Viggen, after a long and difficult evaluation process. The order involved 40 Jaguars built in Europe at Wharton and 120 license-built aircraft from Hindustan Aeronautics Limited under the local name Shamshir, which means Sword of Justice. As an interim measure, 18 Royal Air Force Jaguars were loaned to the Indian Air Force, with the first two loaned aircraft operational with Western Air Command on the 27th of July 1979. The second batch of aircraft for the Indian Air Force were 40 Jaguar Internationals built at Wharton, first aircraft being delivered in March of 1981. Batch 3 was the assembly of another 45 aircraft by HAL, of kits shipped from the United Kingdom, the first kit being shipped to India in May of 1981. In the following phases, more aircraft would be built in India with less European content. And in total, 80 aircraft were built by HAL. Indian Jaguars were quite different from the RAF ones. The adored Mark 811 engines were soon adopted in the HAL production line, giving 8,400 pounds of force each. Foot-pounds of force each. There were R550 Magic 1 or 2 in rails over the wings, but more importantly, the NAWAS, even if very modern in conception, was replaced because it was found to be quite unreliable. The RAF was already upgrading the system with the modern Ferranti Type 1024 inertial navigation system, but to India they were offered the 1024E variant, which was a downrated export version. Though the IAF pursued instead the development of a totally new nav attack system called Darren that combined several technologies from France, UK, and other sources. This system was more reliable and more precise than the older NAS, and all the IAF Jaguars had it as a standard system. Jaguar is found to be a long-range, fast, stable, and effective strike aircraft in IAF service. Another important upgrade was the Maritime Strike version, fitted with a radar, the French Agave, and a powerful British anti-ship missile, the Sea Eagle, I believe, and produced in a very limited number, only 12. The only real issue with the Jaguar is about the lack of power at altitude, especially with heavy ordnance on board. Initial Jaguars were used to carry out reconnaissance missions in support of the Indian peacekeeping force in Sri Lanka between 1987 and 1990. They later played an active role in the 1999 Kargil War with Pakistan, dropping both unguided and laser-guided bombs, the IAF defining its role as a deep penetrating strike aircraft. Jaguar is also used in small numbers for the anti-ship role, equipped with the Sea Eagle missile. Jaguar remains an important element of the Indian military as, along with the Mirage 2000, Jaguar has been described as one of the few aircraft capable of performing the nuclear strike role with reasonable chances of success. It has been alleged that the Indian military decided against developing the Jaguar into an active nuclear platform because of its lack of ground clearance for deploying India's gravity-drop nuclear bombs. As the aircraft aged, the avionics were viewed as lacking suitable components for the ground attack mission, such as terrain-following radar, GPS navigation, or modern night flight systems. Consequently, several upgrades were carried out in the mid-1990s, including the addition of the Lightning target pod, getting in place an order for 17 additional upgraded Jaguar aircraft from Hindustan Aeronautics in 1999, and a further 20 in 2001 and 2002. The Indian Air Force plans to upgrade up to 125 Jaguars starting in 2013 by upgrading the avionics as part of the Darren 3 program, and is considering fitting more powerful engines, the Honeywell F-125IN, to improve performance, particularly at medium altitudes. The latest upgrade program, Darren 3, Display Attack Ranging Inertial Navigation 3, has also been approved. In addition to new avionics and equipment installed as part of the Darren 2 upgrade, Darren 3 would feature modified avionics architecture, new cockpit with dual SMDs, solid-state flight data recorder and solid-state video recording system, autopilot system, integration of new multimode radar on the Jaguar IS. Currently, only the Jaguar IM are fitted with radars, and major structural modifications will be carried out on the airframe to accommodate the radar. Initial Jaguars delivered to the IAF were powered by two Adour 804E engines. Further deliveries were powered by the Adour Mark 811. All the current IAF Jaguars are now powered by the Adour Mark 811. The Darren 3 upgrade will cause additional weight problems due to the addition of new avionics and radar, resulting in it becoming underpowered. Later, Indian Air Force decisions resulted in the engines not being upgraded due to budget constraints. Some other export customers include Ecuador, Nigeria, Oman, and that's it. And I don't think they saw much service with these other customers. Ecuador used them for ground attack and air superiority roles in the Cenepa War with Peru in 1995, but most of the fleet was held in reserve in case of a wider conflict. Nigeria has used a couple, I believe in counterinsurgency, but they've been unable to economically operate them, so most have been withdrawn from service and put up for sale. And the Royal Air Force of Oman ordered some, but they were retired by August of 2014. And so that currently leaves India as the last operator of the Jaguar, who will presumably operate it at least for the near future until they find a suitable replacement. I believe the Tewas might have been slated to replace it at some point, but that program's been kind of a burning dumpster fire, so I don't see it being replaced anytime soon. So that brief overview of the Jaguar, we can now go to our debriefing. Mission success. You have successfully completed this quick mission. We destroyed all 13 tanks, most of our wingmen are dead, except for the one who managed to make it back to base. But we managed to destroy 7 tanks and 2 vehicles, as well as that one Russian pilot who got caught in the blast of our missile while ejecting. And it looks like Wingman 2 took out 3 tanks and friendly fire. Okay, so our wingman fucked someone up real bad. We had 62, really only 62, I guess those 3 packs probably, some of those probably counted as misses, but 40% hit on our guns. Our one air missile that we launched did hit the pilot. And if this is right, then the pilot only had something like 18 hit points, if even that. Our wingman fired 2, both failed, and then their bomb has 100%. Oh, you know what? I'm betting when they were all making their attack runs, one of the other aircraft releasing their bombs must have been caught in the blast radius of his bombs, and that's how he got the friendly fire, since he apparently didn't hit him with guns or missiles, so. And there was some AAA fire on us, which was basically the tanks firing on us. They missed, fortunately, because they would have annihilated us otherwise. And that about sums it up, so, I don't know if I'll be able to think of any more aircraft to showcase. I guess we'll find out next week, but in the meantime, thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for next time, and stay safe out there, and we'll see you then.